For a while, I didn't like compressor pedals, and I think that had to do with how weird the controls were compared to actual compressor pedals. Often guitarists don't understand how to use analog compressors, so you see that reflected in a lot of guitar pedal compressors. Like, what the hell is sensitivity or sustain? That's not a real compressor setting. When I first started looking at the Cali76, it really kind of changes that for me because it's quite literally an 1176. I really like that because I'm very familiar with an 1176 type compressor. So when I first started using the Cali76, it was just great. Like, wow, like I know what this does and I know how to approach sculpting my tone using this outboard gear-esque pedal. As you could see, is very, very shiny and nice. Sort of brushed aluminum vibe. A nice big red light that flickers depending on your gain reduction. And it's just very, very awesome. And I like it very much. My name's Joseph Anajar. I'm a guitarist from Montreal, Canada. I'm lucky enough to today be talking to you about the Cali76 by Origin Effects. Huge shout outs to Alex at Origin for hooking me up with this, and I'm very thankful that they were down to work with me on this. They really wanted me to explore using this pedal with the quad Cortex, and I thought that was a great idea because for the past few years I've been really into hybrid guitar rigs. And what I mean by that is sort of using analog gear with digital gear. So that could be a real amp into a load box, right, in IRs, or the quad Cortex 4-cable method with an amp, or using pedals as outboard gear in effects loop of modelers. A lot of stuff like that. There's a lot of different stuff that you can do when you have that approach. And what happens is you get the benefits of both the digital and the analog gear. Alright, so let's take a look at some tones. Right now I have the Cali76 running into my quad Cortex. I'm modeling a Lone Star clean channel. Here's my clean tone. So it's kind of like on the edge of breakup. That's how I like my clean tones. Right now, there's nothing other than the amp. So here's now with the Cali76. So I have some pretty casual 1176 type settings right now, you know, attack all the way down, release all the way up, ratio at what I can only guess is 4:1, no dry signal, and then the in and out pointing towards noon. And that kind of gets me the amount of compression I want for a sort of like subtle but always there compression. And you really hear it when I pop notes out. So here's without. And then here's width. Also, obviously, the sustain of chords. Right, and then if I take it off. I'm recording right now and I can see the waves that I'm tracking look different when the compressor is on and off. And in general, the reason why I have the attack and release set that way, you know, attack all the way down and release all the way up, is because I would like a sort of slow attack time so the attack misses my transients. That's why it pops out. And then the release, you know, so it all the ways up, so it kind of catches up, right? That's a common way to set a compressor to accentuate transient detail, but then sort of even out the sustain. And because of the way I play with sort of like really percussive legato, that really helps out my playing. It really feels like there's something behind my playing sort of pushing the notes out. This is something that I've had trouble with some amplifiers, some really clean stuff like Fender Twins and Deluxe Reverbs, where like unless I'm driving it with a pedal, I really don't get along with it, and I feel like I have to play much harder than I feel right now with all this pedal stuff. So it's like this sort of stuff feels a lot easier with the compressor than without it. So here's without. With. Something I should mention is in the first place, I'm setting the amp up to react like that already, and the compressor is giving me more of that. I'm happy to play into this amp model, this sort of cranked, clean channel of a Lone Star without the compressor, right? Because it's already doing that sort of preamp compression thing. But the Cali76 gives me more control of how much more I want of that. So now something that we could look at is comparing the 1176 inside of the Quad Cortex compared to the Cali76. Right now, I have them set in a similar fashion. I'll read out the Cali76 settings on my Quad Cortex. So input -14, which seems kind of, you know, that sort of makes sense. Ratio 4, so 4:1. Attack as slow as it goes, and release as fast as it goes. And no makeup gain. So here's no compression. Now here is the Quad Cortex 1176. And now here's the Cali76. So the differences are very, very subtle, obviously, and this is already a conservative setting where not much is happening. It's a very subtle stage of compression. But if I do like a... maybe I could accentuate the difference. So here, that was the Cali76, and here's the Quad Cortex 1176. Back to the Quad Cortex. And then back to this Cali76. Now back to the Quad Cortex 1176. Yeah, very subtle difference. What I'm sort of hearing is that the Cali76 feels bouncier. This is more of a feel thing than a heard thing. I don't know how much you guys are going to be able to hear this difference. Compressors are like an elastic band, right? You're throwing sound into it, and then the reaction time is making it push and pull. Obviously, like not many of us are used to analog compressors, right? Hardware units. Most of us will be used to digital plugins already. So comparing a plugin to an emulation in the Quad Cortex, it's going to be very close. Comparing an analog unit to the Cali76 pedal will also be a sort of similar thing. So what I think I'm hearing right now is the difference between an analog compressor and a digital compressor, which is that the analog compressor can be stretched further. So I'm feeling this sort of bounciness of my notes being pushed it's sort of pulling me further. It's bouncier, you know, like all these sorts of words that you make up to describe sound. Bouncy is the right one right now. Yeah, again, very subtle stuff, but this is the sort of differences that we're after, right? Like that sort of analog tone. So to me, the Cali76 is closer to the analog, stretchier, bouncier 11Z6 sound. And that's kind of what I'm hearing. And I'm going into a clean amp right now to really accentuate the differences. But often, usually in real amps, but often I will opt to use compression in front of a lead tone as well. So here's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to switch over to a lead sound. So here's my lead tone from the Quad Cortex. It's the second channel of the Lone Star. There's no compression right now. So here's with the Cali76. First thing you're going to hear is my gate is kind of freaking out a little bit, which is fine. But the level is not necessarily higher going into the amp, but it is more even. So what's going to happen is there's going to be a bit more low-end distortion in the lower register of the frequencies, because obviously the high-end stuff is the stuff that distorts right away. And then the evenness of my notes is going to be accentuated. There's just more behind the note. There's more support behind my notes. And as a player that kind of thinks about being touch sensitive and using as little strength and effort as possible to play these sorts of runs, this is something I look for. So here, I'll play the same sort of, faster legato run with and without the pedal. And obviously there's going to be a bit more drive from the Cali76 because it's driving the amp harder. But listen to the evenness of the notes. That is the thing that I'm paying attention to. So, all right. So that was without, and then here's with. Very fun to play with this sound. It's getting a little bit fuzzy. I would probably EQ the amp a little bit differently if this was always on. But there's so much support, right? I could keep going. Not only the sustain, but there's just so much there's just so much front end transient smack that is happening because of the way I have this compressor set. It's not just the compressor, it's how I have it set with the attack and release. Now, something that you could do is sort of dial in how much of that you want and sort of dial in the attack and release differently if you want less of that or more of that. But for me, this is sort of the ultimate compressor setting. I can leave this on all the time. And honestly, when I was younger, this is the sort of thing that I didn't know that I needed. I would have felt a lot better playing a lot of different amps if I had the knowledge that I have now about compressors. I just want to quickly go over some routing stuff with the Quad Cortex. So right now, as you can kind of see, I'm going into the input of the Cali76, out of the output, and then into the input of the Quad Cortex. So that's very, very simple. And Actually, what I was doing during the demo is I was just bypassing this compressor and this gate. That's not always very ideal. And if you want to utilize scenes and other stuff, you might want to create an effects loop with the pedal as a sort of outboard piece of your rig. So here's how you would do that. So the first thing you're going to want to do is connect the pedal to an effects loop of the quad Cortex. So let me do that right now. Here's what I just did. I'll just run it through again. So this is the guitar input, and then send into the pedal, and then out to the return. So that's how you would wire it up. But now inside the quad Cortex, here's what you would do. So let's say I want this after the gate, but before my overdrives that are right here. So I would create an effects loop. Let's do effects loop 1. And then there you go. Now I have access to this as an effects loop, and I can even make it part of my scenes, right? I can do this. So if I bypass it here and then turn it on here, now it's on depending on the scene, right? Which is like having a big switcher. So you leave the pedal on, and depending on the scene that you're using, you turn it on whenever you want. So that's pretty cool, right? And if I wanted to replace the quad Cortex 1176, I would just take this, put it together garbage, right? And then put this effects loop right here. So now to remake the clean I had, I would just turn this on. And then, so now I have my clean tone with a little bit of compression, this compressor. And now I have the lead, and let's say I don't want it for the lead, I can click it, bypass it. Now I have two scenes where I have it on for the clean and then off for the lead. When I hit an amp dry with no pedals, I find the tone is not supporting what I'm playing, which makes me work harder, makes me tense up. It doesn't make me feel good. Stuff like boosts and compressors are a sort of must for me in my tones. You know, the only way I could get away without a compressor or boost is if the amp was cranked all the way, and that's never happening. Like even with my lower wattage like Friedman heads, I'm never turning them up past halfway. And same thing with the modelers, like using this with the modelers, even though I'm saturating the amp model in the quad Cortex, for example, having that extra compression control in the pedal is just so much cooler because I get to control the minute details of my transient design hitting the amp. Alright, that's enough rambling from me. Once again, my name is Joseph Anajar. I'm a guitarist from Montreal, Canada. Huge shout out to Origin Effects. You can follow them on Instagram and also follow me on Instagram. Joseph_is_rad. And if you like my playing, check out my music. And yeah, thank you very much for checking this video out. I'll see you guys around, okay?